The silence hadn't started with a dramatic fight or some single explosive betrayal, more like a slow erosion of trust, chipped away by years of passive-aggressive birthday calls, unanswered voicemails, and buried resentments no one dared to dig up. But now, here she was, staring down the lens of her phone camera, about to reconnect for the sake of a story. It had started as a challenge pitched during the Monday morning editorial meeting, a feel-good feature for the magazine's upcoming 30 Days to a Better You series. The prompt? Reconnect with someone you've drifted from. Call them every day for a month. Chronicle what happens. Sam had half laughed when her editor turned to her and said, "What about your mom?" Her colleagues giggled, not knowing the full weight of that suggestion. Now, sitting cross-legged in her Brooklyn apartment with a cup of chamomile tea going cold beside her, Sam hesitated over her phone like it might bite. She took a deep breath and hit call. The line rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then came the click. "Hello?" Lorraine's voice was thinner than Sam remembered. Precise, polite, and vaguely cautious. Like someone expecting a telemarketer. "Hey, it's me." A pause. Then a strained exhale, almost a laugh. "Samantha. Well, this is unexpected." The first call lasted only 4 minutes and 38 seconds. They talked about the weather. The price of eggs. Lorraine mentioned that her neighbor had started feeding the stray cats again. Sam nodded along, eyes scanning her notes as if she were conducting an interview instead of talking to the woman who'd raised her. By day 3, the calls had grown slightly longer, but not warmer. Lorraine answered every question like she was walking through a minefield. Sam, for her part, tried to stay neutral, journalistic, composed. But beneath her professionalism, a gnawing question began to form. Why does she sound like she's afraid of me? Lorraine's voice trembled whenever Sam asked about her childhood. She deflected with odd stories, changed the subject with practiced ease. Sometimes it felt like she wasn't just guarding a memory, she was avoiding a landmine. Sam began to jot down notes not just for the article, but for herself. Things Lorraine said and didn't say, names that slipped out and were quickly walked back, pauses that felt too heavy to be casual. It was on day 5 that Sam first wrote the word secrets in the margins of her notebook. This was supposed to be a simple story. A daughter reaching across time and tension to rebuild a fragile bridge. But something about her mother's voice felt like the beginning of something much more complicated. By the end of the first week, Samantha's daily calls had shifted from awkward obligation to quiet obsession. She told herself she was just following the assignment, that it was her job as a journalist to observe patterns, notice inconsistencies, and probe where others might look away. But the truth was simpler and far more dangerous. Her mother was hiding something, and Sam could hear it in her voice. It started on day 7. The conversation had been unusually relaxed, almost warm, as Lorraine recounted an old family recipe Sam barely remembered from childhood, one of those nostalgic dishes layered with cream, butter, and regret. Then, as if by reflex, Lorraine sighed and murmured, "You used to help Daniel stir the batter when you were little." Sam froze. The silence that followed was only a beat long, but it felt like a seismic pause. "Daniel?" she asked, careful to keep her voice light. "Oh, I meant Darren," Lorraine corrected too quickly, too sharply. "Your preschool teacher." Or was it Daryl? Gosh, I can't believe I'm getting so senile. Sam didn't push. Not yet. But the rest of the call was laced with static, both literal and emotional. Her mother sounded flustered, her normally crisp tone suddenly muddled. The call dropped 3 times. By the time they hung up, Sam's hands were shaking. That night, she bought a burner phone and a digital recorder. Not because she didn't trust her mother, she'd moved past that long ago, but because she didn't trust herself to hear what was really being said. She needed evidence. Something concrete, something she could rewind. So she started recording every call, and once she began listening back, she couldn't stop. There were strange cadences in Lorraine's voice, places where she hesitated, sighed, or grew suddenly formal. She would say things like, "You always were such a curious child," with an edge that made Sam feel like a trespasser. And twice now she'd mentioned something about the apartment on Loring Street, a place Sam had no memory of ever living. Sam created a spreadsheet to catalog the red flags. Daniel. Day 7, Loring Street. Days 4 and 6. That night. Day 5, but no context. The pattern was there, buried beneath small talk and static. Something was bleeding through, a confession wrapped in misdirection, and somewhere, deep inside, a suspicion began to take root. What if the version of her childhood Sam remembered was just a story someone told her? By the end of the week, the project no longer felt like self-improvement. It felt like surveillance. By day 12, Samantha's calls with her mother had become a routine she couldn't quite shake, even if it made her skin crawl a little more each time. But it wasn't the calls that were gnawing at her now. It was Lorraine's house. Or, more accurately, what Sam had found when she visited it. The idea had come to her one evening after a phone call that left her with more questions than answers. Lorraine had mentioned her old things in passing, as if it was just another part of the wallpaper. But Sam knew her mother well enough to recognize when something was being dodged. So she made the decision to visit. No warning, no heads up. Just a quiet Saturday morning where Sam decided to step back into the house that had once been her sanctuary. The air was thick with dust and the smell of something unfamiliar. Maybe mildew, maybe old memories. Lorraine had always been the type to preserve everything. Nothing in her house ever changed. The same flowered wallpaper, the same threadbare carpet, the same wooden furniture from the 70s that Sam had long ago stopped noticing. But today it felt like the house was holding secrets in its creaky bones. Sam made her way upstairs, half-heartedly inspecting the familiar rooms, the small bathroom, the guest bedroom that had been her childhood sanctuary. But it was the attic that called to her. She hadn't been up there in years. The stairs creaked underfoot as she climbed. There, tucked behind a stack of dusty old boxes, was an old wooden chest. It wasn't ornate or particularly noticeable, but something about the way it stood, shoved into the corner like it was being hidden, made Sam's heart race. The chest was locked, but Sam didn't hesitate. The curiosity that had been building all week surged in her, pushing her forward. With the metal hairpin she found in the bottom of her purse, she pried the lock open with surprising ease. Her hands shook as she lifted the heavy lid. Inside, she found stacks of letters. Hundreds of them, some yellowed with age, some still in pristine envelopes. Sam's breath caught in her throat as she read the first one. It was addressed in familiar handwriting, to my other daughter. The letters went back years. Decades, probably. Sam could barely make sense of them. There was a strange, urgent tone to the words. I didn't want to be like this. I didn't want to raise her. But I did. The next letter was more cryptic. You were supposed to be with me. I'm so sorry. Please, don't hate me for this. Each letter seemed to grow more frantic than the last. The words blurred as Sam's mind raced to keep up with the implication. Her pulse hammered in her ears as she rifled through more letters, the same phrase appearing over and over again, to my other daughter. But it wasn't just the content of the letters that had Sam reeling. It was the fact that she had never known about them. Her mother had kept them hidden in the attic, locked away like some forgotten relic of another life. What the hell is all of this? Sam whispered aloud to herself, her voice thick with disbelief. Footsteps creaked behind her. She whipped around to find Lorraine standing at the top of the stairs, her face ashen and tight with panic. You shouldn't have come up here, Lorraine said, her voice low, almost pleading. The chest was still open, its contents splayed across the floor like a dark confession. Sam stared at her mother, who looked smaller, older, and more fragile than ever. I wasn't supposed to find this, Sam said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. What is this? Why didn't you tell me about these? Lorraine took a step back, shaking her head. I didn't want you to know. It's not what you think, Sam. It's not what you think at all. Her mother's voice broke, and for the first time, Sam saw real fear in her eyes. Fear of what? The letters? The secrets buried beneath them? Sam's gaze fell back to the chest, to the words that haunted her. To my other daughter. Who is she, Mom? Who is this other daughter? Sam's voice cracked, but her resolve was unshaken. There was no turning back now. Lorraine's face crumpled as she looked at the floor, unable to meet Sam's eyes. For a long moment neither spoke. Finally, Lorraine whispered, "You're not the daughter I raised." The words hung between them, like a weight Sam couldn't lift. The discovery in the attic weighed heavily on Samantha, a shadow that seemed to follow her throughout the week. The cryptic letters, the hidden chest, the raw confession from Lorraine. It was all too much. Her whole life was built on a lie, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing she didn't know who or what to believe anymore. She had to know more. The following Monday, Sam sat at her kitchen table, the phone buzzing on the counter as she scrolled through old family records, her mind still reeling. She had already been to the courthouse once before, and she was ready to return. But before that, there was one more thing she had to check: her birth certificate. It had always been one of those things Sam never gave much thought to. She had assumed it was just paperwork, a trivial detail in the greater narrative of her life. But now, after everything she had discovered, it felt like the final key to the truth. As she reached for the drawer where it was kept, Sam's pulse quickened. Was she being paranoid? She had already questioned her memories, her upbringing, her very sense of self. Could she really trust something as ordinary as a birth certificate? She yanked open the drawer. It wasn't there. Panic stirred in her chest. She opened it again, more urgently this time, sifting through old receipts, tax documents, and photographs. But no birth certificate. Her mind raced. Had she misplaced it? No, it was always in this drawer. Always. Sam stared at the empty space where the certificate should have been, the sinking feeling growing heavier in her stomach. There was only one logical explanation. Someone had taken it. Her hand trembled as she picked up the phone, dialing Lorraine's number before she could stop herself. The call went to voicemail. "I need to talk to you," Sam said, her voice sharp and controlled. "Where's my birth certificate?" Her mind flashed back to the attic, to the locked chest, to the words, "to my other daughter." Was Lorraine hiding more from her? Was it possible her mother had been orchestrating this for years? Sam hung up without leaving a message, her fingers still trembling. The day dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity. The walls of her apartment began to feel suffocating, and the silence around her seemed heavier than usual. What if Lorraine was involved in something far darker than Sam could comprehend? That night, Sam couldn't sleep. The thought of someone rifling through her things, her most personal documents, gnawed at her, so she decided to take action. She would hire a private investigator. The decision wasn't easy. Sam had always prided herself on being independent, self-sufficient. But this was different. This wasn't just about finding a story. It was about finding the truth, about herself. And she couldn't trust anyone, not even Lorraine, to tell it. The investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Claire, arrived the following morning. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with a directness that immediately put Sam on edge. After a brief discussion, Claire agreed to take on the case and promised to track down any leads regarding the missing birth certificate. But as she left, Claire's words lingered. "Your mother might have something to hide, Sam," she said. "But sometimes people hide things for reasons that go beyond just a lie. Be prepared for what you might find." The next few days were a blur of research and phone calls, but Claire's findings were chilling. The birth certificate, it turned out, had been altered. The original document, the one Sam had grown up with, the one that had always been in that drawer, was a fake. Sam stared at the photo of the forged certificate Claire had sent over, her breath catching in her throat. The name of Sam's father had been changed. In place of her biological father's name, there was the name of a man she'd never heard of before, Evan Delaney. Evan Delaney was not her father. But what did this new name mean? She ran her fingers across the document, barely able to process the gravity of what she was seeing. The sensation of being trapped in a nightmare tightened around her chest. Her identity had been stolen. For the second time in a week, Sam's world was shattered. That afternoon, as the rain began to fall in thick sheets outside her apartment, Sam found herself pacing, her mind spiraling. The truth was slipping through her fingers. Every answer only led to more questions, and the lies were piling up faster than she could dig through them. Who was she? What had her mother done? And why, for the love of everything, hadn't Lorraine told her? She looked at her phone again. Still no answer from Lorraine. "I need to know the truth," Sam whispered to herself, the words hanging in the room like a fragile thread. But what would happen when she finally did? Sam sat in the dim light of her apartment, her mind reeling from the forged birth certificate. Each new discovery seemed to send ripples through her reality, until everything she had known about herself felt like it was collapsing in slow motion. The walls of her apartment, once a refuge from the chaos outside, now felt more like a prison, trapping her in a nightmare she couldn't escape. But the forged document wasn't just a small detail. It was a key to something much larger, a truth Sam wasn't ready to face. As she clicked through the latest documents Claire, the private investigator, had sent her, one particular piece caught her eye, a public record, an archive of a family connection she had never imagined. It was a name, one that sent a cold shiver down her spine: Senator Conrad Langston. The name had popped up in her investigation of her altered birth certificate, but it wasn't until now that Sam understood just how deeply it was tied to her. Senator Langston wasn't just a political figure with a squeaky clean public image. No, he was something much more, and his connection to her was even more unsettling. A quick search of Langston's background revealed that he was a longtime married man, deeply involved in politics, with a reputation for integrity. He was also known for his charitable work and seemingly perfect family life. But underneath that polished image, there was something far darker. Sam scrolled down further, her pulse quickening. There, buried beneath legalese and sanitized press releases, was an uncomfortable truth. Langston had been involved in a notorious affair. The affair wasn't just an isolated indiscretion. It was a long-term, highly guarded relationship with none other than Lorraine, her own mother. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with a sickening finality. Sam sat back, the weight of the revelation suffocating. This wasn't just about her birth certificate. This was about everything. The truth of her origins, her identity, her family. Senator Langston had been her real father, the man whose name had been forged onto her birth certificate. And worse, he wasn't just a stranger, he was her boss's stepfather. Her head spun as she pieced the connections together. Her editor, the man she'd trusted more than anyone in her professional life, was the stepson of the powerful senator who, unbeknownst to him, was also her biological father. Sam closed her eyes, the realization sinking in like a weight around her neck. She had always wondered why she felt so alienated in her own life. The perfect facade of her career, the constant push to meet deadlines, to chase stories, had always felt empty. But now it made sense. She had been living in the shadow of the very man who was part of her bloodline. The investigation had just taken an unexpected turn. Sam wasn't sure what to do with the information now sitting in front of her. The implications were staggering. If this went public, it could be catastrophic for the senator's career, and for her own. She found herself drawn to the idea of a confrontation with Lorraine. Was this the moment she'd been waiting for? Would she finally have the answer she had been seeking? Or would her mother double down on her lies and evasions? Before she could decide, her phone rang. It was Claire, the investigator. "Sam," Claire's voice was sharp, almost frantic. "I've got something else." "What is it?" Sam asked, her stomach sinking. "I found something troubling. Some surveillance footage of you, Sam. It was taken just weeks ago, in a public place. I've sent you the footage. You might want to take a look." Sam felt her stomach drop to her feet. Surveillance footage? Who would be watching her? She clicked open the video on her phone. The quality wasn't great, but it was enough to make her blood run cold. There, standing in the background of a busy street, was someone she recognized, but didn't want to. Her mother. Lorraine was watching Sam from a distance, her face shadowed under a hat, her movements cautious but deliberate. Sam's heart pounded as the footage revealed her mother's tracking of her every step. Had Lorraine been spying on her all this time? The unsettling questions piled up like a tidal wave. Was Lorraine still protecting the senator? Was she afraid of something she knew about him? Or was she hiding the truth about Sam's parentage because she feared the consequences of revealing it? Sam knew one thing for sure. Nothing was as it seemed. Lorraine wasn't just hiding a past of infidelity. She was hiding something far worse. And Sam wasn't the only one being watched. Sam couldn't keep running from the truth. But she wasn't sure if the truth was worth the cost anymore. What had started as a simple, awkward challenge had now snowballed into a tangled mess of lies, betrayal, and political cover-ups. The closer she got to the truth, the more it felt like it was tearing her life apart. But she couldn't stop now. Not when she was this close. "Who the hell are you, Lorraine?" Sam whispered into the phone, the words echoing through the room. The answer, she knew, was far darker than she could have ever imagined. The walls of Lorraine's modest home seemed to close in on Sam as she stood in the hallway, her heart thudding in her chest. Lorraine's house had always been a place of quiet tension, the kind of place where words lingered unsaid and every glance seemed loaded with history. Today it felt more suffocating than ever. Sam had demanded the meeting, had demanded answers. Lorraine hadn't wanted to see her, but Sam had insisted. If she was going to uncover the full truth, she couldn't keep playing around the edges anymore. There was too much at stake. With a sigh, Sam walked into the living room, her eyes scanning the space that felt so familiar, yet so foreign now. Lorraine was sitting on the old floral-patterned couch, her hands twisted nervously in her lap. Her hair, once full of life, now appeared flat and lifeless, the physical reflection of a woman who had carried secrets too long. "Mom," Sam began, her voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk. I know about Langston. I know about you and him." Lorraine flinched, her face paling as if she had been struck. For a moment, she said nothing, just stared at Sam with wide, searching eyes. Her lips trembled as if she were about to speak, but then she swallowed hard, as though the words were caught in her throat. "What are you talking about?" Lorraine's voice was barely above a whisper, a defensive tone creeping into her words. "What do you think you know?" Sam's hands clenched into fists. "I know you were his mistress, Mom. I know you." Sam stopped, feeling her throat close up. She had heard the truth from the private investigator, but hearing it out loud, confronting her mother with it, was a different beast altogether. Lorraine's eyes widened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Sam saw something vulnerable in them. But it was quickly masked by a wave of defensiveness. Lorraine turned her head away, looking out the window as though the world outside might offer some form of escape. "Stop, Sam. Don't do this," Lorraine murmured, the words coming out with a desperate edge. "You have no idea what you're asking me to do." But Sam was relentless. "You lied to me. For my whole life. You raised me like I was your own. But you knew who my father really was." The last words came out in a harsh breath, the accusation hanging between them like a storm cloud. Lorraine finally looked back at her, her face contorting with something close to pain, but the hurt in her eyes was mixed with something darker, something defensive, even cold. She got to her feet slowly, as though the weight of the conversation was physically too much to bear. "I didn't want to hurt you, Sam. I didn't want to ruin your life," Lorraine said, her voice shaky but resolute. "I had to protect you from the truth. You were better off not knowing." Sam's breath hitched. "So, you just decided to lie about everything? About him? About my father? You knew who he was and kept me in the dark about it." Lorraine staggered backward slightly, as if Sam's words had physically struck her. "You don't understand. It wasn't just about protecting you. It was about protecting me. And him. And the life we'd built. Even if it was a lie." Sam blinked, the weight of Lorraine's admission sinking in. This wasn't just about deceit. This was about fear. Lorraine hadn't kept the truth from Sam because she wanted to. She had done it because she was afraid. Afraid of the political storm that would come crashing down if anyone knew about the affair. Afraid of losing the only connection she had to her own identity, her own sanity. "You think I wanted this?" Lorraine asked, her voice rising, trembling with emotion. "You think I wanted to fall in love with a man who could destroy everything? You think I wanted to raise a child I couldn't claim as my own? You don't know what it's like to live with the guilt of loving someone you can never have. of raising a child who's not yours but is everything to you. Sam's heart twisted with sympathy, but she wasn't about to let Lorraine off the hook. Then why did you keep it a secret for all these years? Why didn't you tell me the truth? Why hide everything, even the most important things about me? Lorraine's shoulders trembled as she wiped away a tear. Because I loved you. I loved you like I loved no one else. But that didn't make it right. I was his mistress. I was the other woman. And when you came into my life, I thought I could protect you from all of it. From the shame. From the world that would never accept you. You were my chance to give you a better life than I ever had. I couldn't destroy that by telling you the truth. A heavy silence fell over the room, the words hanging in the air like a suffocating fog. Sam's mind was reeling. Her entire understanding of her past, of who she was, where she came from, was being ripped apart before her eyes. Lorraine's face was pale, her hands trembling, but there was a fierceness behind her eyes, the kind of fierceness that only a woman who had spent decades holding a secret could possess. But then Lorraine's voice broke again, low and raw. I didn't raise you to be a political pawn. I raised you to be my daughter. And that's the only thing that matters. You're my daughter, Sam. No matter who your father is. Sam felt the weight of those words, even as a part of her screamed that the truth was more complicated than that. But Lorraine's plea, the raw honesty behind it, was all Sam had ever really wanted from her. A glimpse of the woman who had raised her, a woman who wasn't just hiding behind lies, but was also a victim in her own right. For a long moment, Sam said nothing. She simply stood there, staring at Lorraine, both of them broken in their own way, both of them holding pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. Finally, Sam spoke, her voice softer now. What happens now, Mom? Lorraine shook her head, eyes glassy with unshed tears. I don't know, but I've been waiting for this moment for years. I didn't want you to hate me. Sam felt the weight of Lorraine's words press on her heart, but her mind was racing. There were so many unanswered questions now, so many truths she had yet to uncover. Was there more? More secrets buried in Lorraine's past? And what of Senator Langston? Could the political powerhouses she was tied to destroy her and her mother for good? As Lorraine sat down heavily on the couch, Sam's gaze lingered on her, her mother's face filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. One thing was certain, the storm was only just beginning. The sun hung low in the sky as Sam sat alone in her apartment, the late afternoon light slanting through half-drawn blinds. Her journal lay open in her lap, but the pages were blank. There were no words big enough for what she had just learned. A single sheet of paper, weathered, creased, and almost trembling in her fingers, lay on the table before her. It was a printout from the PI, slipped discreetly into her mailbox that morning. Samantha Delaney, missing, age 11 months. Disappeared from a Baltimore hospital nursery in 1993, case unresolved. And just below it, a grainy black and white photo of a baby with soft curls and wide, familiar eyes. Sam stared at it for the 100th time, the image blurring and sharpening with each blink. There was no denying it. That baby looked exactly like her. Or rather, like the girl she used to be, the girl she thought she was. Her name wasn't on the case report. Lorraine's name wasn't either. But the timing, the city, and the eerie resemblance were unmistakable. The letters in the attic to my other daughter hadn't been just odd relics of a confused woman's past. They were messages, breadcrumbs, apologies. But apologies for what? That question had haunted Sam since the moment she found them. Until now, she hadn't been able, or willing, to connect the dots. She hadn't wanted to believe her entire childhood had been a lie, that Lorraine, for all her coldness and secrets, might not be her mother at all. Or worse, that Lorraine had once tried to reach the real Samantha and failed. A hollow ache spread through Sam's chest as she thought back to her earliest memories. Birthday parties, bedtime stories, the smell of burnt cinnamon toast on Sunday mornings. Could those moments have belonged to someone else? Had she unknowingly taken them? And if she wasn't Samantha Delaney, then who was she? A frantic knock at the door jolted her upright. She opened it to find her private investigator, Elliot, standing there, rumpled, tense, and holding a yellowed manila folder. "I wasn't supposed to bring this," he said, eyes darting nervously. "But you paid for the truth, and, well, you need to see this." He handed her the folder and stepped back like it might explode. Inside was a hospital intake form, half redacted, from a closed medical facility in rural Maryland. It detailed a child admitted under emergency conditions, no name, no ID, just infant female, approx. 11 months, brought in by a woman matching Lorraine's description. The file ended abruptly. No follow-up, no discharge summary. "Is this me?" Sam asked, her voice cracking. Elliot hesitated, then gave a grim nod. "We believe so. The intake date is 2 weeks after the real Samantha Delaney went missing. The woman who brought the child in, gave a false name, never came back." Sam swallowed hard, bile rising in her throat. "So Lorraine didn't just hide me, she might have taken me?" "We can't prove that yet," Elliot said quickly. "But the letters in that chest? They weren't fantasies. She was trying to write to the girl she never got to raise. The real Samantha." Sam sank into the couch, the weight of the revelation crashing down like a tidal wave. Her hands shook. She felt like she was dissolving, her sense of identity cracking open. Her whole life, she'd felt something was off, a distance in Lorraine's eyes, a chill beneath her words. She chalked it up to strained maternal instinct, maybe unresolved trauma. But this was cataclysmic. She stared at her reflection in the window. Who was that woman? Not Samantha Delaney. Not Lorraine's daughter, just a ghost raised in another girl's place. And then another thought slithered in, one more terrifying than all the rest. Where is the real Samantha? Because if Lorraine had tried to reach her once, what had stopped her? Sam drove for hours, the endless highway winding like a question she couldn't yet answer. Her knuckles ached from gripping the steering wheel too tightly, her eyes red from too little sleep. She replayed the PI's words over and over like a twisted lullaby. "There's someone you need to meet. She looks like you, but she's not you." The address led her to a crumbling apartment complex on the outskirts of Wilmington, the kind of place where the windows were barred and the paint peeled like dead skin. Sam hesitated outside the front door, heart hammering. Apartment 3B, that's where she lived. The woman who might be her sister or the real Samantha Delaney. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. After a tense moment, the door creaked open a few inches, held in place by a security chain. A single eye peeked out, rimmed with suspicion. "You the cop?" The voice rasped. Feminine, tired. Sam took a breath. "No, I think we might be related." A pause. Then the chain slid free. The woman who stood before her was like a funhouse mirror. Sam's features echoed in a rougher, wearier frame. Her hair was darker, her eyes harder, her smile gone. She looked like someone who'd fought her way through every room of hell and only barely escaped. She didn't offer her name. Just stepped aside and muttered, "Come in. If you're lying, I'll know." Inside, the apartment was sparse. Secondhand furniture, an overflowing ashtray, a flickering lamp. There were no family photos, no childhood keepsakes, just shadows and silence. They sat opposite each other, the air thick with unspoken tension. "I'm Sam," she finally said. "Samantha Delaney. Or, at least, I thought I was." The woman let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You and me both." Her name, Sam would learn, was Nina. Or, at least, that's what she'd been calling herself since she was a teenager. No birth certificate. No adoption records. Just memories of bouncing through foster homes, run-ins with the law, and a creeping sense that her life had been stolen before it ever started. "Your PI tracked me down a week ago," Nina said, lighting a cigarette with a trembling hand. "Said you were looking for the truth? You sure you want it?" Sam nodded. Nina stared hard at her. Then here's the ugly part. I remember a woman, faintly, pale skin, red hair. She used to hum when she thought I was asleep. I think it was Lorraine. Sam's breath caught. You're sure? No, Nina said bluntly. But every time I hear the name, it hits something in my gut, like a bruise that never healed. They talked for hours, comparing fragments of memory, scars both literal and emotional. The pieces didn't fit perfectly, but they overlapped in just the right ways. Same lullabies, same whispered name, Daniel, same recurring nightmares of a hospital hallway and a woman running away. And then came the kicker. I got these a few years ago, Nina said, reaching into a drawer and pulling out a stack of old letters. The handwriting stopped Sam cold. It was Lorraine's. Neat, careful, sorrowful. Dear baby girl, I don't know where you are, but not a day goes by that I don't wonder if you remember me, if you know I loved you. Tears welled in Sam's eyes as she read. The same haunting sign-off repeated in every letter, to my other daughter. It was undeniable now. Lorraine had tried to reach Nina, had written to her, maybe even searched for her, but she had also lied over and over again to Sam, the child she'd chosen to raise instead. I thought she was a monster, Nina said, her voice cracking. Now I don't know. Maybe she was just broken. Sam didn't respond. She couldn't. Her world had tilted so far from center that all she could do was hold on. A stolen identity, a missing sister, a web of lies that stretched back 3 decades. And the worst part? She still didn't know who she really was. But as she looked across the table at Nina, this mirror, this mystery, this maybe sister, she felt something new. Not peace, not closure, but a connection. Raw, fragile, real. And as they sat in silence, one last thought echoed in Sam's mind. If Nina is the real Samantha Delaney, then who am I? The newsroom buzzed with an energy that felt more like bloodlust than journalism. Sam sat in her cubicle, a folder in her lap and a 1,000-yard stare fixed on her computer screen. Inside that folder, photos, timelines, DNA results, and transcriptions of the calls she'd recorded. The story she never meant to write had taken shape, and now it stared back at her, hungry. Her editor, Max Harrington, hovered in the doorway like a vulture who smelled the first whiff of decay. This is Pulitzer territory, Delaney, he said, practically salivating. An expose on a sitting senator, a missing child, a mother with secrets darker than night. Are you kidding me? This is front page and Netflix deal material. Sam didn't answer. She was still thinking about Nina. After their meeting, Sam had returned to the hotel and sat in the dark for hours, rereading Lorraine's unsent letters. The aching sincerity of those words haunted her. They weren't the lies of a cold manipulator. They were the unravelings of a broken woman trying to stitch together what she'd destroyed. But facts were facts. Lorraine had lied. Sam had lived her whole life under a false identity. Senator Langston had hidden an affair, possibly committed a cover-up, and now Sam stood at the crossroads of morality and ambition. Clock's ticking, Max said, dropping a printed mock-up of the front page on her desk. Headline: America's perfect senator hid an illegitimate daughter and stole another. Byline: Samantha Delaney. Her name, right there, in ink, in history. But what would it cost? Sam flipped through the folder again. She paused at a photo taken by her PI, a long lens shot of Lorraine, hunched over in a coat too big for her, standing in front of a payphone in a bus terminal. The timestamp read, 2 days ago. Lorraine hadn't gone home after her last call. She'd vanished. And now, she wasn't answering her phone. Not texts, not voicemails. Sam felt her stomach twist. Lorraine was running. But from what? Or worse, from whom? She stood abruptly, startling Max. I need more time. His expression soured. Sam, no. The senator's camp is already feeling the pressure. If we don't go to print, someone else will. You'll lose the scoop. You'll lose everything. Sam looked at him with something close to pity. I've already lost more than you know. As she stormed out, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. A hoarse, familiar voice rasped on the other end. Sam, it's me. I need to tell you everything. Before it's too late. Lorraine. Sam froze in the middle of the sidewalk, traffic screaming around her. Where are you? She whispered. But all she got in return was static, and a final sentence that sent ice through her spine. I didn't mean to take you. I only meant to protect you from him. The call dropped. Sam stood motionless as a cold wind cut through her jacket. Her mother was on the run. The real Samantha was out there. A powerful man was watching. And her own name, the one she'd used her whole life, might belong to someone else entirely. She had a choice. Tell the truth and blow everything wide open. Or protect the people who'd broken her in the name of love. And right now, Sam didn't know which choice would haunt her more. The phone rang at exactly 11:59 p.m. on day 30. Sam had been staring at it for hours, willing it to come to life. She hadn't filed the article. She hadn't returned Max's messages. Instead, she sat in her dark apartment, phone in hand, voice recorder running, waiting for her mother's voice one last time. Lorraine's voice came through, low and uneven, as though it had aged decades in the last few days. Samantha? Not Sam. Samantha. The name suddenly felt too big for her. I'm here, Sam whispered. Are you safe? A beat of silence. Then a sharp inhale. No, but I need you to hear me. I owe you that much. Sam closed her eyes, letting her mother's voice anchor her. Lorraine began slowly, haltingly, as if dragging the truth up from the bottom of a well filled with guilt. There was another baby. A mix-up. Or maybe it wasn't a mix-up at all. Langston, he didn't just want to keep me quiet. He wanted control. The affair was dangerous enough. But a child? That was a liability. Sam listened. Breath caught in her throat. He arranged for an adoption, told me our baby had died during delivery. But I knew. I knew it was a lie. So I went to the hospital and found you. A baby girl left alone in the nursery with no name on her wrist. You were crying. Sam's eyes brimmed with tears. So you took me. I couldn't walk away, Lorraine said, voice breaking. I thought if I gave you love, if I raised you right, it would make up for the wrong. But the guilt never went away. Every birthday, every scraped knee, every school photo. I saw the real Samantha in my dreams, growing up somewhere else. Or worse, not at all. Sam swallowed hard. So who am I? A pause. A painful one. You're the baby I chose, Lorraine said. Even if you weren't mine by blood, I loved you as fiercely as any mother could. But I should have told you the truth. Sooner. Before the lies drowned us both. Static crackled on the line. Then, she's out there, you know. The real Samantha. She found me once. Years ago. But I couldn't face her. I couldn't explain. She looked so much like you. Sam's heart stopped. You saw her? She was angry. Lost. Said I owed her a life. And maybe she was right. A noise filtered through the background. A door creaking. A footstep. Lorraine's breath hitched. I don't have much time. They know. Langston's people. They've been watching me. Watching you. Sam gripped the phone tighter. Come to me. We'll fix this together. But Lorraine only gave a sad laugh. Some things can't be fixed, but they can be finished. A pause. I kept a key for you. In the chest, beneath the letters. It opens a locker at the old train station downtown. Inside is everything. Documents, tapes, proof. Use it if you need to, or burn it and start over. Sam couldn't breathe. Her voice cracked. I just want you. But Lorraine's voice was already distant, fading. You always had me, Samantha, even if I didn't have the right to be your mother. Then silence. The line went dead. Sam sat frozen in the dark, phone clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. The call was over, but as she turned toward her apartment window, something caught her eye across the street. A woman, tall, dark-haired, wearing a long coat, stood just beyond the streetlight's edge, looking up at Sam's building. She lingered a moment too long, then vanished into the night. Sam's heart pounded. The final twist? Maybe the story wasn't over. Not if the real Samantha Delaney had just come home.